Welcome, everybody, to the Creature Cast, the official Console Creatures podcast. My name is David Petrangelo, and I'll be one of your hosts for this journey into all things PlayStation VR2 this week. I say that, but I'm not the one who's played it. Thankfully, though, two other awesome guys have. Editor extraordinaire at consolecreatures.com. Bobby, how are you, man?
Another week where I am so tired, but for a good reason this week. And I mean, we're going to get into why we're all tired, but yeah, we're on the recovering end of a review period.
That's good. Yeah. It's all been a crazy week for you guys. Steve, how are your eyeballs feeling?
Oh, they are fatigued. Let me tell you that right now. But in a good way. I mean, similar to Bobby, I think that's a very exciting time where, 2 months into the year and it feels like review period has already started. And what better way to kind of like kick off a year than a really cool, exciting hardware review. And I'm excited to talk about it, to be honest. I think it's going to be a good discussion.
All right. Well, PSVR2.
I'm excited, but let's be honest. Hold on. Before we start, it's only February 15th, guys. It feels like it's June.
That's true.
I'm tired. Like, I don't even know how these developers pack these schedules or like who makes the decisions, but you guys are killing us. And I'm a little cruel. I feel like I'm being abused, but it's all for the good.
Of the game industry. You have a PSVR2, you have games to play. Are they going to send you like, Steve's already got his glasses on, but are they going to send you glasses to help your eyes feel better, or like something or eye drops? Or
my eyes are just they've been taking the beating.
Now
they hurt.
Now I say all that with no experience with this hardware at all, and you guys have it, and I say that jokingly. It's not necessarily a bad sign. It's just because you've been playing a lot of PSVR2 games, and that's why. It's not because the PSVR2 is burning my eyes. It's a terrible product. That is not the case. We're gonna preface that first, but I'm gonna sort of let you guys sort of talk things through, and every once in a while I'm gonna ask a few questions and stuff. But
Please.
Largely this is going to be how you guys have felt with the PSVR2 on your heads in your houses and playing it over the last several days. It's a very exciting time for hardware and peripherals, which is something that we haven't said in a couple of years since these latest generation of consoles have launched. And this from an outside perspective, someone who has not played a lot of VR, like very, very little, and honestly a few years ago probably at this point. So like technology that's nowhere close to this. I'm excited just to hear about it. I just want to sort of hear what you guys are saying. So, Bobby, let's start with you. What have been your overall thoughts so far? And then maybe after that, you guys can break down certain games and aspects of the headset that you've been enjoying the most. But PSVR 2, a few days with it, at least. How you feeling?
I'm overwhelmed with it. It's definitely a huge improvement over PSVR. I mean, it's a night and day difference. I mean, just even trying to describe it, it's like taking your first steps out of, as a child. Like, you're finally getting the hang of walking around and you're starting to see the world in a new light. And I'm a firm believer in VR after playing, the last week with this headset. It's the coolest thing.
I guess that's another actually, there you go. First question popped up. I mean, this, I guess to both of you guys is this we'll talk about price point, I think, of here and there, but is this a good starting point because it's so impressive, or is it a good starting point just because it's new and it's the one? Like, is this the one that people need to get, or is there sort of like a stepping stone before you jump in? Because it sounds impressive, but is it the one?
That's a loaded question. I mean, because there's just so many options, right? I mean, for a console gamer, 100%, this is the way you want to go. Right. I think if you're in the PlayStation ecosystem, this is the next step of where Sony wants to go. So it seems like, they understand that there's a market for this. It's niche, but clearly it's growing. I mean, the last 6 years have proven just how much it's grown. I mean, look at PSVR 1 to PSVR 2. It's a giant leap. Like, the technology powering the first headset just seems so basic now. And then you see what they've done with PSVR 2, and you can see a teardown video that was released this week. It shows you just how much care and attention they put into making this something for everybody, something where you can, experience something new in the comfort of your own home. But as a a regular gamer who doesn't really have like any ties to PlayStation or Sony, there are other platforms like the Meta Quest, which it's a similar price point. It's wireless, which is a cool thing. But it really comes down to where your allegiances lie. I mean, for me, my ecosystem is PlayStation. I do like the ecosystem. I was gonna pre-order it. I pre-ordered it actually before even getting the review unit, and I was like, "Yep, this is it. I want to play it. I want to experience it." Horizon Call of the Mountain just proved how much I liked it after. Just seeing that world in a new light, like just that alone. I love the world that Guerrilla Games made. Being able to experience it in VR just means it was like a no-brainer to me. So yes, I mean for me, 100%, this is the right step for VR, and I totally think it's worth the price.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I love Bobby's enthusiasm. I really do. I think there are compelling points to PSVR. I mean, there's undeniable proof here that the hardware is a huge upgrade from PSVR. I think no one can look at this and be like, well, it's a half step, it's a half measure, because as influential, as impactful as the original PSVR headset was back in the day, way back in 2016, in hindsight, it's archaic. It was running off of peripherals that dated back all the way to the PS3. So as cool as it was back in the day, to hook it up and play Borderlands 2, Beat Saber, all these other games, the Arkham experience, it's such a old way of doing VR back in that day, that processing unit and all those cords. Simplifying it down, yes, it still has a one singular cord, connects via USB-C. That's what does all the processing for it, for the 4K HDR visuals up to 120 hertz. That is where I kind of go, okay, there are competitive devices out there that offer wireless, offer a better price point. So I think that the argument of like, is this the one, depends on who you are, depends on the time of week. It's still very early on in its life cycle. Like, it's not even really out. It has a compelling launch window, of 30 plus games and stuff like that. But is it the one? I don't really know. But that being said, if you're a console player, if you're in the PlayStation ecosystem, already have the PlayStation 5, I think this is the way I kind of wrap my mind around it, and will continue to do so, is that PSVR, the original, felt very much like a hybrid supplemental device between the PS3 and the PS4, where it was kind of like both of them. This very much feels in tandem with the PlayStation 5, whether it's, you look at the design, it's very much in parity with the black and white core design of the console. You look at the Sense controllers, which I'm going to bring up here. I mean, just the ergonomics, just the adaptive triggers, the haptics, everything about it feels very much in line with the DualSense itself, that it feels very much in the PlayStation 5 ecosystem, that family, that if you are already putting out all that money for a console and you are a VR enthusiast, you loved your PSVR, but you're like, I wanted more, I want that next gen upgrade. Yes, I think that there's a compelling argument to say, okay, maybe go out, shell out in Canada, $750. It's a lot. But if you are Dave, for instance, never played VR, look at this and you're like, well, I like Horizon, I like, the IP and everything. Gran Turismo's VR seems cool, but I don't know if I need to go outside of my means and purchase this. I don't think you're really missing out on that all that much. I don't think this is the thing that's going to make your mom and dad buy VR. I don't think this is the Wii of VR units, where it's like the one.
The Wii didn't even make my parents play video games, so it's not.
Well, then there you go. Your parents are hopeless at this point.
Every once in a while, I think my dad smacked the drums on Rock Band back in the day, but that was it.
Yeah. So I think there's a compelling, like, it's undeniable that this is a premium next gen iteration of.
Well, they're
Sony's
presenting it that way too.
VR
they're definitely presenting it that way. Yeah.
It's definitely, like I said, it's a niche market. Like my enthusiasm is not.
It's going to be for a long time though. Like it has to be. I think it has to be. It has to be
because it's still brand new. It's video games took like 40 years to hit mainstream,
right? Yeah.
So it's just a matter of time. But like my enthusiasm comes from just what I've seen so far, and like it's definitely not for everyone. I mean, I'm not gonna go say if you're on the fence, like don't go buy it. Like I still think if you're on the fence, give it some time. Mm-hmm. But there are those people who I've spoken to or interacted with. Day one pre-order, they purchased it. They have, they lined up virtually. They put their money where their mouth was, right? And since day one, those people we knew were going to buy it. February 22nd, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think
my brother or like you, Dave. I mean, you guys were on the fence. You don't really have too much investment in it. It's still. There's still time to see what they're going to do. Sony needs to keep investing before I would fully say there are some games you might like them, like Horizon. Sure. Go buy it in like 6 months or maybe a year. But for now, it's the early adopters are 100% have already bought it.
Yeah, that's
I wouldn't say I was 100% going to buy it. Like I did the pre-order. I was if I didn't hear what I wanted to hear from the previews, I would have canceled it.
Right.
But the previews came back so positive and glowing. I was like, well, okay, that means I would have bought it. 100% I would have bought it after reading the previews.
And I think what the nice thing is that, Bobby, you're talking about early adopters is that, and it's a great jumping off point, what PSVR 2 provides for early adopters, people who have their pre-order locked in, who are eagerly awaiting the 22nd for their units to ship and everything. There's a lot here. There's a lot of really exciting tech, really exciting software that makes that value proposition worth it, in my opinion. Like, it's impressive what this unit is able to do. But again, it's all about the value proposition at the end of the day. Versus,
that's the biggest thing, right?
Early adopters versus people who are kind of on the fence, being like, is this my time for VR? I don't know.
A lot of people, let's be honest, VR is, like we said, it's niche, but the average person is not sitting down and playing VR for 3 or 4 hours. They're maybe doing like an hour and then they're putting it away.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm finding myself like that. That was me with PSVR. I played it for an hour, and because I knew I had to spend a 45-minute to an hour window cleaning it up, putting all the cables back, it was minimal usage. So now with the PSVR 2R, it's one cable.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I can plug and play whenever I want.
Yep.
And I'm finding myself spending 2 or 3 hours at a time, even 4 hours. And I spent.
Oh, you're a madman.
I struggled with it the first couple of times, but like the first time I had a session with Horizon, it flew by. Like I did the opening, the opening tutorial. Mm-hmm. And then 3 hours later, I'm like halfway through the story, and I'm like, "What? Like, where did time go?" And
what is time?
What is time, right? But like the whole thing is, the headset's so light and so comfortable that
So
you're not noticing the time is going by. Right? You're just playing. Like even last night. I wanted
to mention that too. I wanted to ask you guys about that too, because Steve, you held up the controller a little bit briefly a few minutes ago. So if anyone's watching our video version, like it's a very interesting looking thing. Like not having my hands on it, I'm like, what? How do I even? Yeah. I guess that makes sense. Cool. You kind of put your hand through the loop and hold it like that.
So it's very
I like how
much
they have their safety strap.
Oh, you have to, because I get a little scared around my TV.
They're touch sensitive. The strap is touch sensitive. So if you're not, strapped in, the game won't play.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And it locks by itself. So all you have to do is kind of just like move your hand and it'll like tighten to your hand.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
that's crazy.
I like
it. So cool. So that's what I sort of wanted to ask about how it feels, because one, I know that it's like not every headset, not every controller, not every hand control, like whatever it might be, doesn't work for everybody, right? And this won't either, and that's fair, but what does it feel like putting it on? What does it feel like holding the controllers? Is it comfortable? Is it intuitive? Or is it just like, I'm used to this because I know it's VR and I'm a gamer and I can kind of figure it out? Like, what's that experience like
from the get-go?
Put it on? Yeah.
From the get-go, I was very nervous and hesitant. For people who aren't watching, I wear glasses. So that it comes down to the whole thing of like, okay, well, PSVR, while it's comfortable, and I'll give Sony full credit, they created back in the day one of the most comfortable headsets that I personally experienced as a glasses wearer. I think they improved it greatly here, where I was like, okay, well, with PSVR 2, I'm going to have to take off my glasses, which will then inevitably end up with me getting a headache after time. Will me wearing glasses end up like, is it going to like push against my head? Is it going to affect like the arms of the glasses and everything? No. I haven't run into no issues. Even the fact that because it still retains that same design philosophy of having the viewfinder slider, so you can pull it in closer when you're putting it in. It never hits my glasses. Like that's what another thing I was worried about was okay, having the lenses, the OLED lenses built in here, are they going to hit my glasses lenses? How's that going to conflict? I'm running into no issues. I'm going to bring up the headset again for viewers here. Shout out to PlayStation because they made one of the comfiest, ergonomic, little pads here. It's awesome. The way it, once again, it has the tightening dial on the back. When you tighten that thing and it just compresses into your head, it feels like a warm little hug. There's just something about it that just feels really good.
It's satisfying hearing that click, and then it just messes on your head.
I mean, it looks so minimalist too, right?
And then you have the viewfinder, which there's just so much thought. Just the teardown video that I posted in the review. Whenever you guys check it out, February 22nd or tomorrow, February 16th, I have the teardown video of Sony showing why every piece was put there, what it means to the development team, why they did it. And they thought of everything. They looked at every head that was submitted to their development team. They took screenshots. So they
didn't take my head, and I know that would be a task.
I know that's a thing, right? But they took someone with a big enough head as mine, and it fits comfortably on my head. So that tells me.
All right, there you go.
It's just the thought process.
Sorry, go ahead, Bobby. No, go.
Yeah, the thought process behind the development of this product. There's a lot of thought behind. It's not just let's put up the next version. It's okay, how do we make this better for everyone?
Yeah.
And it's clear once you wear it on your head for an hour, you're like, wow, okay, this really is cool. It's like you're wearing nothing at all.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. No, the reason I called you a madman for doing VR trips that long is because I definitely could wear this headset for hours on end. It's so lightweight. It's so comfortable. It's just that after an hour or something, I just get eye fatigue. It's okay, I just got to take this off for a while. And then it becomes a whole thing of, throwing it back on and stuff like that. But shout out to how much they were able to improve just the weight of the thing. Once you put it on, it feels weightless. It doesn't really impact your neck, or it doesn't weigh down on you. The other thing I wanted to talk about was just the ergonomics of the Sense controllers.
Look, it looks like it's very easy to just pick up and
that's just it. As soon as you put your hand on it and wrap your hand around it,
makes sense.
Your fingers just fall into the right place. I don't feel like I have to maneuver anything. My hands don't cramp after a while. One thing, and maybe this was just my me being naive or anything, I never realized that at the top they didn't include the L1 button because it just doesn't really work there. Just the way you let your fingers press. So I was but then they designed this grip button.
Oh, it's sort of
on the very side, so it's just where your middle finger rests just naturally. So it's very interesting.
Some games label, I think they relabeled that the L1 button in game. I've seen a couple of games where it's L1, but it's so natural that your hands already on there, so it makes sense just to grab it and just push it.
Yep.
Yeah, it definitely looks. I mean, that's impressive. I mean, it just looking at you pick it up, Steve, and sort of seeing the videos and stuff that are out there and everything. It looks a little bit. Ooh, this is very advanced or whatever. But the second you grab it and you put your hand through it and hold it, you're just it makes sense. It doesn't look as elaborate as it might seem in a still photo.
But that's the thing, is that it looks simplistic and it just works. But honestly, the Sense controllers are the standout for me above anything that the headset does.
100%.
I wholeheartedly stand these controllers. I think that these things are leagues way better than anything that the Move controller ever brought to the table. I think these are on par with something like the MetaQuest 2's controllers. I think just in terms of the hand tracking, the gesture tracking, the fact that, I can be in Horizon and give a thumbs up to a machine as it's trying to kill me. I think that's hilarious.
What? And it picks up that you have a thumbs up?
Yeah, it goes thumbs up, or I can do finger guns because it has that gesture tracking, right? Yeah, for really cool. Nerdy people, Bobby, you were talking about the teardown videos. They explained the Sense controller has 14 IR sensors wrapped around.
I did see that. That's right.
And then a couple others in the controller itself, and those are what the cameras now pick up on the headset versus a PlayStation Move camera, and then those like light orbs and stuff like that. It's really high tech, and like it's almost like a one-to-one thing going back to Horizon, where I'm climbing a mountainside, my hands feel like where they should be. It's not like playing Borderlands on the original PSVR where my hand would just go flying this way, flying that way. I'm like, I have no control here. I feel like I'm in control the entire time, whether I'm playing Moss, whether I'm playing Kayak, VR Mirage, which games we'll talk about and later down the road, but I feel in control. I feel like everything is kind of one-to-one. I feel immersed.
Yeah. So overall, like the tracking, whether it's the headset or the controllers, you guys have felt both that the tracking has been like right there. You're not really I mean, maybe it's not going to be 100% perfect. That's fine, whatever. But you haven't had any like glaring issues. There's nothing there to say like, oh, they should update this or whatever. None of that stuff.
No, not at all.
I've had nothing. It's been smooth. It's been smooth since day one. No, nothing. I'm just trying to think. Everything kind of works as intended. Like I have no complaints. Like it's a great like peripheral to have. The Sense controllers last about 5 hours.
I was about to say,
5 hours. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. That's way longer than I would use a DualSense. Like the DualSense Edge is something that you could have used a better battery.
Yeah, you guys both mentioned that.
Yeah. The Sense they're great.
5 hours.
For what they are.
5 hours looks bad on paper, but unless you're Bobby, who in your right mind is spending 5 hours in VR? Like honestly, like most people I talk to, including myself, it's probably like a 1 hour, maybe an hour and a half thing. And 5 hours is sufficient enough. I mean, most of the times I end up just charging my Sense controllers after a play session. That way I don't walk into a day where I'm like, oh, I want to jump into Moss, and I'm like, oh, well, now I have to wait,
or I'm climbing a mountain. No, now I'm falling.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, it's dead.
It could happen to you.
Yeah. No kidding.
But the nice thing is that I've been finding that they charge to full around 45 minutes. It's a pretty quick charge.
That's very good. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like my cell phone. That's pretty great.
I think the official charger will charge them in about that too. So if you're buying a VR headset, the official charger for them should be about the same. Should be about 45 minutes.
Nice. So the other thing is obviously the controllers are obviously wireless. That's just the way it is. But it's a single cable that's running to your PlayStation 5. How long is it? How much does it feel like it's in the way? Like those little things that you may not think of. How did that impact or not impact the way you guys are playing?
I'll start with that. I mean, I barely noticed it. It's like Steve said, like the ergonomics behind the headset make it feel so light. So even the cable's not really, intrusive. I think they said it's about 4 feet long. It's a long cable. Like I have a lot of slack on mine, and I'm granted I'm not too far from the couch, but it never, interfered. I had all the room to move around. I did a couple rounds of What the Bat which is like a whole playroom area. So you have to set up the entire room as the play area. So you need to have, all this
the space.
I think it's like 6 feet by 7 feet for the room space. So you need a lot of space, but like I never latched onto anything.
Accidentally knock it out with your foot or something. Like that's the kind of thing that I know I would do because I'm clumsy as hell.
That happened with the PSVR for me. That definitely happened with the PSVR. Like
I think that happens with a lot of people with a lot of VR setups. I mean, fair enough, right? Because it depends, and it also depends on what you're playing, I guess, right? That's part of the question, I guess, that I could kind of follow up with too, regardless. But it depends if you're sitting down or if you're standing up, right? Because if you're standing up and you're like have a tendency to move or you need to move or something, in whatever way, then I feel like I would just step on it and it would just pop right out of the system, right out of the headset or whatever it is. But I'm sitting down. Okay. The cable's a cable. Like I've dealt with cables on controllers my whole life. So,
right? Yeah. So no, it's not intrusive. It's so, it's just something that kind of fills into the background. Like once your headset's on, and the cable's just kind of behind you, you don't even notice it. It's not something I even paid attention to. I think maybe once it got tangled onto my shirt, but that's because I was moving around. But that's the point where anything moved, right? It was just kind of bunching up. but it was really it's like a non-issue. It really isn't.
So it says that it is 4.5 meters. That's what it is. So that's pretty long.
Yeah.
4.5 meters.
It's a long cable. The only thing I'm kind of disappointed about is there's no way to kind of like, for me, I have to like obviously wind up the cable at the end of the night, but like there's no way, there's like nothing that they didn't include it, to let me wind it up.
It's just like a place to put the cable, sort of thing.
Yeah, like there's no zip tie, there's no like a
little thing that you would wind up for like a garden hose, like one of those.
I wish I would install one in my house if I could, but like that's the only issue I have with it. That's the only thing, and it's not even a big issue. I just I use zip ties.
What about you, Steve? What about the
whole
I'm
a little more critical. I'm a little more critical of it. I'll totally agree with Bobby that for me, it's a non-issue in terms of I've never tripped on it. It's not yanking my PlayStation off my media center or anything like that. But in the year 2023, when you have the Meta Quest out, fully wireless, it's a cheaper price point. I just can't get behind their justification of, it's just one cable. We need it to, use it to process the 4K visuals and stuff like that. I'm like, I get that. You can find a way. Like that's really like the one thing that I like that gets in the way of me being so bullish in saying like this is a next gen piece of hardware. That's the one. The cable is the one thing that I'm like, this is holding it back from its competition.
To be fair, let's be fair though. I mean, if it was fully wireless, the battery life would be abhorrent. I think for the trade off, that's the only thing, and that's the only reason I'm letting. That's the only reason I'm giving it, a pass, because it was never marketed as a wireless thing. If it was, the battery would have to be incredible, because 4K, 120 hertz would last an hour.
I guess that's a trade-off, right?
That's a very fair point. Yeah,
you have that battery, and then it's going to be heavier because it just needs to be.
There's too much trade-off to get wireless in this situation. So like that's why it's fine. One USB-C cable into the front of the console is a non-issue for me. That's all it takes. It's that.
Yeah,
and then
I think I see what Steve's saying though. It's sort of like, I know it's possible. Can't you just make it possible? For the money that you're spending.
If Sony wanted to do that,
it's not only that. Like
I'm sure
they
want
down
to.
Well,
but they want to, they just can't.
So the thing is, if Sony offered that, they could offer like a different SKU for that. So like make it PSVR wireless, make it its own thing. Graphics are so like it won't be 10 or 4K. It'd be like 1080p OLED, similar to the PSVR ones, lenses, but with some modern upgrades. So like, if that was a thing, let them do that. But like for what they're offering, it's equivalent to a PC VR. So like you're getting a PC VR experience, which has cables like that. There's a cable, right?
I don't disagree. I think that a lot of people are going to look at this and look at the paper, like look at it on paper and say, well, it's got a cable, so this other thing doesn't. I don't think that too many people are looking at it and be like, well, okay, yeah, the battery would then be X amount. It would weigh it down and everything. It's just like a spec by spec thing where they look at Meta Quest 2 and they're like, that's a wireless thing. Yeah, I'll go with that. So I do think that it hinders that kind of experience. But that being said, I totally think that's a great point to be made, because it definitely would affect how much weight is there, which I think you can't really take away from it. I think that the weight here is just perfect.
Yeah, you guys have said it multiple times, like even just off the cuff, even when I wasn't asking about it. Like it's something that one of the first thing that came to your mind, I think, that when we first started recording. So it's definitely a feature. So
it's a big thing, because like you have this thing on your head, and like a lot of the weight is in the front here. So you've got the pressure on your nose.
Yeah.
And that was an issue with the PSVR for me. It was like there was a lot of pressure on my nose here on the bridge. This one, it's not even an issue. Like you can expand the viewfinder, the distance between the lenses, so you can see better. They made all these thoughtful decisions where it's meant to be worn for longer periods at this point.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Those were a couple things I wanted to get into before we start talking about like anything else. Is like the substantial design and integration of like new features into this thing. I think like most of them being like the new cameras, which read the IR sensors and everything. On the bottom here, I'll hold it up to the camera a little better, because it is a little small there. This is like the pass through button.
Right.
So everyone knows like that's worn a headset before. It's kind of a pain in the ass to take it off, put it back on, especially when it's for like little things. So this pass through enables like the I think it's like the see-through mode or whatever they call it. Sony's calling it.
It's just calling it see-through. Yeah.
See-through. Yeah. So it renders out like a black and white version of like what you're actually seeing in real life, which is very bizarre.
I've never experienced this in other in any of the headsets yet. To me, is it like Virtual Boy?
First time,
like is that what it looks like?
It's the first time you do watching an old VCR movie. It's just like such black and white, like grain.
That's so funny.
I have to assume it feels like an acid trip where you're just like having like an out of body experience in your own body. It's very weird.
And the first time you load it up, like you see like these two little left and right icons show up on your screen. You're like, what the hell are these?
Yeah.
Like I put it on the first time and it says left and right. And I'm like, what's going on?
What did I do?
And, and it's such a contrast because like they're crisp 4K and then you have this like blurry black and white screen.
Oh, I see.
Going around you.
Exactly. But it's great because like in case you just want to know where your couch is or if you need to like take a drink of water and everything, instead of taking the headset off, you just pop this little button, grab your thing.
It gives you where you are because you may have taken a few steps here, a few steps there, or something like that. It's easy to sort of lose track, especially if most people don't have a 10 by 10 room to just dedicate to that, which is why they have the cameras on the headset. Like there's a whole bunch of reasons why they do it, but
exactly.
If you're in a tighter space, like most people would be, I would say, or tight enough space, 1 foot to the left or 2 feet to the right is going to make a difference. You might be smacking into the wall.
and that's me. I'm that person. I had a very hard time with the original PSVR. I've had difficulties with other VR headsets as well. I live in a Toronto condo, so space is limited. I don't want to move furniture out of my way every time I play this. The great thing about this is that because it doesn't use the move or the camera and the move controllers, now everything that you really need here is all built into the controllers and the headset so that you map out the space that you have. I think PlayStation for a standing game recommends like 6 feet by 6 feet, as I think Bobby said previously.
Yes, yeah.
So that I think is very flexible, even for like a small condo.
That's not bad. Yeah.
And I think just the fact that it can read all that within the headset itself, you don't need to, because like even like Borderlands, I went to like reach for a gun and I would be out of the play space and then it wouldn't register a movement.
Right.
Or like Saber, when I had to crouch a certain way, I would be out of the camera's view. I'm like, this is just impossible. I don't want to play any of this because it's just too much work. I don't want to have to move a couch, move a coffee table.
Or you don't want to have to be worried in the moment when you're supposed to be immersed, which is exactly what VR is. To be like, oh, I need to make sure I duck, but I don't duck too much. Or I need to make sure I reach, but I don't reach too much. Like that just automatically literally takes you out of the headset.
Yeah.
And so basically that's what the PSVR does. Like, PSVR 2. It eliminates all that worry because they've taken into account all of this. Like that thing where you used to go out of bounds, like that's not an issue anymore. Like the best thing is like when you're setting up your play area, you take the wand and you just start pointing where you want the play area to be. So you can see the floor, like it's drawing where your player is going to be on the floor. So you can see from one side of the room to the other, you can just see the blues covering the whole carpet. Or the player, and then you just build your area. And then if you wanted to just seat it gives you a radius of where you're sitting for that game. So it tells you you can put your arms up to this far, you can stretch your arms this far forward, and that's your area. And like it does all that guesswork for you.
That's awesome.
And if you step out of the bounds, like there's like a red circle, I think that goes around your controller.
Yeah, that's it.
But it still works. Like the surprising thing is, I went out of that comfort circle. Like I call it the comfort circle because after that you're touching things. It still worked. It still worked. It surprisingly works.
It's more like just like a warning, like just don't go too much further than that. I guess
exactly. Like you might just like end up like hitting your cat or something.
Exactly. They took out all the guesswork, and I like that because PSVR was a whole bunch of guesswork. Like, am I in the space? Am I bending too far? And like, you can actually adjust. So if your place area is out of calibration, you can actually just go to the main menu, open up the PSVR 2 settings, then you can set the level of your floor. So if you're sitting, say, on a bed or like a couch, you can put the level onto the surface of the bed, or if you're sitting on the edge, you can move the floor to where your feet are, so you can adjust the height. It's cool. So if you don't want to bend too far down, you can adjust the height to be higher, so you don't have to go too far.
Cool. Nice. That's. I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but that would make a difference based on how you're sitting or what room you're in.
There are times, exactly. So if you're like lazy some days like me, you don't want to bend down.
Yeah. Well. It's just like, okay. Well, more importantly, like Steve was just saying, it's for someone who can't, for anybody who can't or is unable to. I think that's that's huge, because it could just be a foot from your shoulder. It could just be the level of your elbow. Like, it really doesn't matter if you can't move your arm that way. I mean, this is not the same as someone who has certain disabilities, but like, I know with my wife, now that she had a bad accident with one of her arms a few years ago, she can't bend her left arm the same way she could. So she would have to adjust that, because if something was right on the ground and she needs to do it quickly, for example, or whatever, it's not going to happen. For her to be comfortable, she can do it, but for her to be comfortable and not have to strain herself too much, she would adjust it and be like, oh, that's great. That little thing like that you might not think of is built into it and a choice. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So Sony's been really good with the accessibility. I mean, granted, a lot of the big publishers have been doing really good with accessibility.
Sure. Yeah.
But for something like this, where it's an interactive medium now, there's a lot of accessibility available. So like, you can adjust the experience to meet your needs. So if you can't, like you said, if you can't reach or you can't bend, like, there are alternatives and there are ways to get around it.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'm thankful they put that in, because there are people who can enjoy VR without, necessarily being able to do the full range of movements.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's important. I mean, they need to be able to do that. But like, publishers and developers can do all they want, but if the hardware doesn't let you do it, then it's not going to happen. Right. Yep. So that's awesome. All right, guys, let's talk about some games. I don't know who wants to start or which games you want to start with. I guess maybe we start with, why don't we start with Horizon? Because I actually want to go to that first, because I'm slowly still playing my way through Horizon on PS5. Still very much enjoying it. And I can see how, if it's in this world and I love the world itself, why a VR experience would be really cool. Everything I've heard about it from you and read it all over the place, that it's such a cool way to experience that world. Steve, let's start with you. How's it been playing the Horizon PSVR 2 experience?
I'm enamored by this game. I think a lot of kudos needs to go to Gorilla and Firesprite. They made like this collaborative effort in, creating what feels like equal parts a demo of everything the PlayStation VR2 can do, whether it's, from the camera's eye tracking to the senses, haptics and adaptive triggers, everything like that. I think it does a really great way of just showcasing this is what we're capable of as a first party kind of game. But not only that, it's a AAA scaled game. Like, this is not a quote unquote experience. This isn't Batman Arkham in VR. This is a full game. Like,
nice
relative to VR. The way I've been kind of processing it and putting it in my head, I strongly
right.
believe that this is Sony's way of being like, this is our Half-Life Alyx. This is on point, like a AAA experience. We put the production time, we put the scope in, we put the array of just abilities and the things that you do, the interactions, the immersion, everything is there for people to come in and be like, if I'm invested in Horizon, the IP, jumping into this world, I feel like I'm there. The moment that you start playing that opening bit where, you're in a little riverboat going down a stream and everything, you see the tall neck walk over you, see other machines like coming down the river and everything. You're like, holy shit, like, I feel the scope, I feel the scale of this entire world and everything. And then later on, a lot of the game is just climbing up mountains and interacting with stuff. And you climb over a mountainside and you kind of reach the peak and you look over and you see like this wide vista. And in crazy. VR, you get like, there are multiple moments where I feel chills. I'm like, holy shit, like, the music's hitting right now. I feel immersed. I have the Pulse 3D headphones on and everything. And it's just, it's an experience unlike anything else. And it's something that the original PS VR headset would never be able to accomplish. Not in like not even on PlayStation's best day would they be able to replicate something even close. And I think that just speaks to the hardware upgrades and innovations, but also the fact that Gorilla and Firesprite came out swinging with something available on launch day.
Yeah. So my question about it just in general is not necessarily the story, because I don't want you guys like spoiling story or experience or whatever, but like, the way that you phrase it, Steve, is that it is and I can frame this question for both of you guys, is that it is a AAA size game and scale game relative to VR, which I understand is not necessarily, you're not going to play 100 hours and stuff. That, fair enough. But what is the game? Like, are you literally doing the same thing that you're doing with Aloy and it's just in a VR experience? Or is it like more excuses to climb things than you would otherwise because you have to, because it's quote unquote have to, because it's VR? Like, what are you doing? Are you taking over the robots, or are you like, how's it all working?
So it is a very more like scaled back kind of experience in that you play as Reyes, a brand new character,
right? Which is cool, which is very cool.
Very cool. You are existing in the same world as Aloy. It's made very apparent, like, this is a game that Aloy exists and she's around and everything.
Is it happening? Sorry, is it happening simultaneously with one of the other stories, or is it
essentially like it's
like
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's between 1 and 2. It's definitely
I believe so.
Between.
Gotcha. Okay.
And essentially you're sent out to find your brother who's gone missing and everything, but you're also, it's kind of cheesy, but like, you're known as this great mountain climber. You're someone who's known that you can like scale mountains. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll buy it.
All right, I get it.
Yeah, but every kind of like mission is broken up into kind of like this, I want to say, like, I don't want to say rinse and repeat kind of cycle, but it's very much a pattern of like, you're going out, you're scaling these large mountainsides, and then every so often you'll encounter some machines, you'll take them down, kind of climb, climb, machine, and then you get to an area, you do the objective, and then you go back to this hub area, go out on your next venture kind of thing. So it is very much, okay, get to an area, kind of explore, walk around. You're free to walk around down this kind of linear path, interact with items like, pick up barrels and stuff, like interact with the world in fun and humorous ways. But then, you're also gathering resources to make like upgradable items to better help yourself navigate and scale these mountains. But then you also have your bow and arrow, which I swear to God, bow and arrow combat in this game is unreal. I think
you mentioned it a few weeks ago when you previewed it.
It's one of the coolest experiences in VR, where you pull out your bow and arrow from one shoulder, your arrows on the other, and you're just firing on those machines. And when you get like a critical hit, a piece of their metal falls off, you see the number pop up and everything, and you're like, I feel like such a badass right now. I feel like Hawkeye. I feel like, I feel like I belong in this world. And I think that's something that, speaks to that AAA experience where everything just feels good. I think it is. It kind of sucks that when you boil it down, it is, it's climbing and then a little bit of combat. But when you're in it, you're in it. Like it delivers that like adrenaline rush where it's something I don't think I've had to that same extent in VR. Unlike something like
that's what they want.
Alex. Yeah, exactly.
Right. But that's what they want. Yeah.
Premium experience.
Yeah, and I've heard and read and seen just so many good things about Half-Life Alyx, and I'm just like, oh shit, I really want to play that. Like, that's the experience I want. But if Horizon is essentially what that is, or as close as you can to that experience, then it's like, well, at least they have that, right? At least they have like the big title that they could say, like, they've hitched their ride to this title, I think, understandably so. It's an original series for them, a franchise at this point, and they're going to go with it. And it sounds like, Bobby, I assume the same for you, that it seems like this was the way to go, and it made sense that they went with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big series, right? So Horizon is like, I would say, a close second to God of War. There's nothing else that I would say compares to it, right? I mean, with Uncharted retired, Last of Us, it's been a couple years. So yeah, it makes sense that this is the franchise they went with. I mean, the world itself is reason enough. I mean, you're playing Horizon Forbidden West, what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, it's awesome. Just like the first, it's awesome.
Yeah, so like the sights and the sounds, like just going out into the wild as Aloy in the game Horizon Forbidden West, and you're coming across like these, dilapidated machine ruins, and just like seeing, the vistas. Like, seeing that in VR is mind blowing. It really does take you into that world, and that's why I think this is probably the best game to bring everyone who lives in the PlayStation ecosystem into VR, because it takes what you love and makes it better, and I think it is better because it's Guerrilla. They know how to bring people to these worlds and keep them there, because Horizon Forbidden West is proof enough. Like it's a game I spent over 120 hours in. Like, I love that world. They know how to ground the characters. They know how to turn these like extraterrestrial situations and make them human, and that's what I've been seeing. And then that's the thing with Horizon Call of the Mountain. Like, it does all of that, but you're actually there as Reyes, and as a character, like, he's cool. I like what they did with his story. Like, I'm obviously not going to talk about it because the game's not out yet, but like they do some cool things. They take you to some of the coolest areas in Horizon that seem familiar to me. I mean, just between Forbidden West and this game, like, it feels like I've been there, but in a new light. So being able to take down like a Watcher, or the first time you encounter the tall neck, like, that is the greatest moment for me. Is just the opening moment. You're in that boat, and let's be honest, the opening is Skyrim, because you take off the hood, and then it's a Skyrim. It's like a reskin, but like, it is that Skyrim opening that where you're just so invested in what's happening because you don't know what's happening. You're just
right. I see what you mean. Yeah, that opening 15 minutes or whatever. Yeah,
it's so cool. But like Steve said, like, you feel like you're like a warrior in this game, because like you're given the tools and the knowledge to fight these machines. And like, it's cool taking down your first Watcher, because like, you're seeing the damage, you're seeing the pieces fly off. Like, it creates,
it's right in your face. Like, you're right there. Like, it's
they're a lot bigger than I expected. Because like,
cool,
because in like Forbidden West, they don't look as big. Some of the
no, they never feel huge. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but then you get here and you see how big a Watcher is, like, easily over 6 feet tall.
Massive,
it's long, it's huge. And then the tall neck, like, you could feel the rumble in the visor, and you could feel it in the controller, and you're just feeling the tall neck's just
that's
large.
Awesome. Oh, that's so cool. It's like, oh, I'm excited about rumble again.
Dude,
it's cool. Like, the haptic rumble in the helmet, like, if you get hit, like, you feel it. And that's crazy. It's not like it's violent, but like, it's subtle enough for you. Like, shit, I gotta be careful.
It can be subtle. Yeah, subtle is totally fine. Yeah, you don't want your whole head shaking. Yeah.
and they did such a cool thing with. Okay, so I mean, the way you take hits, like, you feel the rumble, but then you look at your hand and there's like this feather on you, and it tells you how much health you have left. So like, you see like
that was
different
such a cool thing.
Oh, is that cool. That's like your HUD essentially?
It's like your HUD. It's on your hand. And basically everything's controlled through there, or you're controlled like how to like pull your weapons out. So like, it's very basic movements, but they got rid of that issue where I hated with VR, where you're not moving, like, you're just in a spot and then you click to the next place. So this one, they opened that up so you can move around freely. Steve showed me how to do it, because I was annoyed because you actually have to hold the buttons and walk around normally, and it's really stupid. I don't like that. But once you get the freedom to move around with the controller, the joysticks, the analog sticks, like, it makes the game feel like a natural progression of playing a AAA game.
So you're walking, you're walking with a joystick, and then
normally the game is just like the default controls are hold the face buttons on both controls and move your hands like you're walking, and it doesn't feel natural.
Well, because you're not moving your legs and your feet and stuff, right?
No, you're just moving your hands. And it didn't make sense, because you're trying to do that while you're climbing. So it's like you're climbing and then you're trying to do this, and it's difficult. But once you unlock like the traditional controls, like, it becomes like this progression where it's just like the gameplay flows so smoothly, because you're moving around, you're able to see where you want to go. You just get there, you start climbing, and you feel like a shadow Karja warrior. Like, it's cool. It's really cool. Like, you feel like you belong there.
Interesting.
I I just want to jump in and talk about just the movement, because I totally agree with Bobby in that I think that they did a really smart job with the movement, in that they do give you options. So like Bobby was saying, you can swing your arms if you want that weird immersive thing. I think it's silly, but hey, if someone enjoys it out there, by all means. On the right analog stick, you can do like the free flow, like turn your like perspective around as you would in like any kind of first person game. Or you can kind of do like a tap thing where if you shuffle your right analog stick, that kind of shuffles your perspective.
I see.
The awesome,
it's like a snap.
Awesome,
it snaps.
Yeah, it snaps it. Gotcha. Yeah,
like hitting tab on your keyboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The one thing though, and I think that Guerrilla was very smart in doing this, and Firesprite too, is the pacing of your movement, of like when you hit the left analog stick and you start your person starts moving. A lot of games, especially, you know, going back to other VR platforms, especially PSVR, is like Borderlands, for instance, moving can cause motion sickness for anyone.
Absolutely.
I'm not very prone to it. Like, it's not going to happen to me all the time, but it does happen, and especially with like other games that I've been playing on PSVR 2, I've ran into motion sickness. But here, I feel like you're moving at such like a slower pace. Like when you hit the left analog stick and you're walking, there are times where I think we're moving like comically slow right now, but I think that's to the benefit of the longevity it gives you for playing, because at no point in this game, in no point of like scaling these mountains, running around, like fighting enemies, do I feel motion sickness. And I think that's largely because they're slowing that walking down to the pace of like, okay, it's not just like, it doesn't feel like you're running, hitting a wall, and then your stomach kind of like jolts, right?
Right.
Inherently, what causes the motion sickness in VR is that disparity between what your brain's reading versus what your body's doing.
Yeah, what your brain thinks you're doing to what's actually happening. Yeah, for sure.
So I think they slowed down the pacing to such a good degree that for me, again, I'm just speaking to myself. I don't know about anyone else out there, but I didn't run into any motion sickness things. And I highly hope that, you know, more developers look at this and they're like, okay, we got to watch what they're doing, because we got to replicate that for our game. Because I would love to see more action oriented games take on this kind of pacing to avoid stuff like that, because I ran into kind of a few issues with other games that were not designed this way.
Okay. Well, let's talk about a couple other games, whether they're ones that you had great experiences with or somewhere in the middle or weren't great. Bobby, let's go to you first. Let's just pick a game out of the hat, and we'll talk about a couple more.
Yeah. So just to be like, I don't know, discrepance, you know, just to be, you know, on the books and everything. We have a lot of games, Steve and I, to go through. It's like there's 24 games.
We're not getting to all of them, that's for sure.
We're gonna get through all of them eventually, but right now we focus on the ones that kind of, you know, call to us. So for myself, I revisited Moss Book 2, which is a great little storybook game that I think
I want to play those games so bad. Those ones interest me so much. Those are some of
feel like such, they feel great. Like they're definitely something you could play with your kids. Let them, obviously, whenever you have kids, you know, let them try it. But it's just like, it's like a storybook come to life. So you're playing as someone called the reader, and basically what your job is to make sure that Quill, the little mouse, is, you know, your little companion to get safely from one area to the other. So whether you're helping Quill solve puzzles or, you know, moving the environment around her so that she can get to the next area, or she's fighting enemies, your job is just to make sure she's always safe. So there are sections where you're doing that. You're maybe helping her with doing like a puzzle, like figuring out how to maneuver the environment. But once the enemies come in, you take over, kind of like you take over as Quill. So like Quill uses like she has a glaive, she uses a hammer, and you're just helping her fight them. So like basically she takes care of the fighting, you take care of the platforming, the puzzling. And it's just a brief little game. I think I finished it about 6 hours. Like it's not too demanding of your time, so you could finish it in a day. But it's really just it's a heartfelt story. Like you're just kind of going through these motions of, you know, this world's been invaded by this arcane army, and your job is to just make sure like Quill is there to stop them. And it's nothing to write home about. It's a very simple story, but the way it's presented and the way you're involved, you feel a connection to Quill because you're the one taking care of her and making sure she's safe, making sure whatever's in front of her is not trying to kill her. And it's a stress, like I said, it's a stress-free game. It's a nice game to like dial back at the end of the night, put your headset on, and just spend a couple hours getting to the ending. It's definitely a launch title I think is recommended next to Horizon. It's a very different.
It's a different
uninvolved game. It's a different uninvolved game. Like Horizon, whereas Horizon's a very involved game, like you're very active in this game. This one here is more just, you click around, you move things around the environment, you like clear like obstructions and stuff like that. Like, it's nothing too tedious. And
it's always both the games, the first one and the second one, have always been like, ooh, that sounds good. And I look at the video, even though, seeing a video of it, like a YouTube video of it, is not the same as even just watching it on a headset. Never mind playing it. But it always seems like my kind of game and something that I want to play. So it's good to know that it translates well to this, which makes sense because the hardware's improved and everything. So
I could just like like maybe like the comparison I have to maybe like Eco, a kind of game where you're guiding someone through something, like a situation, and that's kind of where I like the idea. Like it's a hands-on but hands-off kind of game where you're not too worried about what's going to happen. It's just
not too fast, but it doesn't feel slow either. It just has a good feel to it.
That's what I think. It's just a great pacing.
Yeah, pacing.
And
exactly.
I mean, it was on PSVR. I mean, I played it on PSVR, and it was rough on there. It was just like, it was very, very archaic. Like Steve said, like PSVR is very archaic. It really had a lot of work to do to redeem itself on PSVR2, and Polyarc did a great job. Mm-hmm. They ported a great game. It feels very different. Like, it feels like it finally belongs on the platform, and I'm just happy to see that it got that second chance to, tell its story, because it's a great little VR game. It's not for everyone. It's like I said, it's obviously more oriented to children, but like it's really cool. I mean, like, I like storybook movies. It kind of reminds me of like the Fievel character.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I was movies are great. Yes.
Exactly. Like, I love that. Like that, the mousy characters are always like cute, and I love supporting that character. So I mean, for what it is, it's great. It's short. It's brief. It's a lot of fun, and that's why I recommend. If you're gonna get PSVR 2, Moss Book 1 and 2 are a great duo to start with. Like, you can't go wrong with either game.
Nice. Steve, what about you? Anything that pops in the mind?
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of what Bobby was saying about Moss Book 1 and Book 2. I went back and dabbled in both of them. I didn't spend a whole lot of time with them because largely I played them on PSVR, and I do agree that I feel like a lot of the launch window catalog games are going to be that conversation of, it's kind of like the same kind of upgrade stream we're seeing with like PSV or PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, where it's like, improved visuals, haptics, adaptive triggers, that kind of thing. I think the same kind of translates over to a lot of these conversations of last gen VR games coming over to PSVR 2. That being said, I mean, Moss 1 and Moss 2 play very great on this new headset. I think they take full advantage of the hardware. It's great stuff. A couple other games that I wanted to briefly touch on. Kayak VR Mirage, which is basically a simulation game where you can, passively go kayaking down these like incredible, beautiful vistas and everything. And then also go through tracks where you're racing against other players. I talked about how I don't get motion sickness all that much. I got motion sickness immediately from this game. Just as soon as it drops you in, like in the water stage, in essentially like a high school swimming pool kind of thing. And as I'm just like slowly just paddling my way, I'm like, I'm not going to be here for more than 15 minutes. I can tell you that right now. I went in, you can select like, I can't remember. It's like the Alps or something. And I started going through, and you're kind of, kayaking around larger ice clumps and stuff like that. That was fine. I was taking my time. It's cool because like you can like physically push your paddle against any like obstacles and move your boat around. It's very cool. It's very immersive in that way. But I think, again, that whole, what the mind's processing versus what the body is doing and everything, it just doesn't line up. And for me, it's a game that I just can't play. Sadly,
Right.
I think that there's a lot there for people who can kind of stomach it, and I don't mean that in like a bad way, but I just mean like it's just a game I cannot stand.
That's just a VR hurdle. That's really just what that is. Yeah.
And I think
had the same issue. Yeah, I had the
it's
same issue with
upsetting.
Iron Man VR. I had the same issue with Iron Man VR on PSVR.
Oh, the Iron Man one, yeah.
I got such I struggled to get through it, because I just kept getting sick, and I know what Steve exactly is talking about, because you really want to keep playing, but you're fighting against the motions, and it's just like, in this game specifically, Kayak VR, like the water is so goddamn realistic. Like,
it's nice, yeah.
It's so gorgeous to look at, but then you're looking at the waves, and you're like, oh god, I can kind of see where she's getting sick, because like the water is just it looks really real.
Well, you want to be in it because of the way it looks and the way it's sort of.
Oh, you can actually put I don't know if this game does it, because I haven't done it yet, but like in Horizon, you can stick your hand in the water and you can feel the controller vibrating gently, like to the water.
Oh, I've never done that. That's
great.
Wow.
That's so cool.
And I was looking online, like I was looking at some of the Kayak VR stuff, like the haptics in that game. If you hit your head against one of the branches, because you're obviously paddling through, like you can hit your head on and you can feel the vibrations in your head.
Man, that's so cool.
It's really cool. But yeah, in Horizon, if you guys get the chance, put your hand in the water and you'll feel the water vibrate to your hand.
Oh, that's cool.
It's so cool.
That's great.
Two other games I want to touch on are Star Wars Tales of Galaxy's Edge,
it's fun.
And then Jurassic Park. I can't remember what. Wow, Jurassic Park Aftermath Collections. Both games, again, have been available on previous generation consoles and everything. These are another two games that I'm talking about where they just do the traversal elements where you're moving, and it feels just too floaty, and floaty and fast, where in Jurassic Park I'm running and all of a sudden, I hit a door and I'm forced to like press a button, and that sudden shift and stop just like turns my stomach immediately, where I'm like, "Ooh, okay, gotta take it a bit slow here. Gotta be careful here, or else I'm gonna hit that threshold where I just gotta take off the headset and stop that immediately." Same kind of thing with Star Wars, where I feel like it's fast, it's fluid, but turning around corners is a little jarring. Same kind of thing. So I do get a little bit of motion sickness. Again, it's so funny because Bobby's talking about getting motion sickness in Iron Man VR. I went through that game, no problem. Start to finish, I was like, this is a blast. I'm having so much fun. Which is just a testament to like not everyone's going to react the same way to certain games and all that stuff. So what my experience is going to be totally different to yours. If you're listening out there and you're anticipating playing, Star Wars Tales of Galaxy's Edge, it's going to be totally different.
It'd be the first one I fire up because it's Star Wars. So
immediately I was like, I need to be here. I need to play this game because it's so much fun.
It's a great little. So the basic premise is like Tales from Galaxy's Edge. So like I like the premise because they can keep adding. So the developer can keep adding like little short vignettes for different scenarios. So like there's one where you play as like a full bounty hunter. Like you're like this repairman who got caught up in a bad bounty hunter deal. So you're like fighting through Batu, and you're fighting like just random aliens. And then another situation you're playing is like a Jedi Padawan. And like, it's a very brief like 15-minute demo, but they have this setup where they can just keep adding different stories to it. Like play as like the Mandalorian one. Like I'd love to do that, but it's not there yet. Like it feels like it does feel like a tech demo to me. It's very short.
Right.
It is. That's it. Yeah.
But thankfully, like we have so many games to play through. I didn't mind it. It gave me just enough to write and talk about it, and I was able to move on.
Yeah.
And speaking of moving on, we have a couple more things. I know we're cutting the show short, but there's a couple things I wanted to. We have a couple questions like from our viewers. Like I want to get those out of the way.
Yep.
And then cinematic mode. I have to talk about cinematic mode because it is the coolest thing, and this is what kind of sold me on PSVR 2. So let's start with cinematic mode because I know, like I said, we have lots of games to discuss, but cinematic mode is like the coolest feature in years for me. And basically what it is PSVR had this very archaic version where you could watch movies or play your non-VR games on like a virtual screen on the headset. Problem is on PSVR, it was very blurry. It was had the screen door effect. So like you're looking at it and it was very like, it looked like you're looking through bug's eyes. PSVR 2, they got rid of all these problems. So basically you're getting a crisp 4K I want to say 4K, but like it feels like it's probably not. I think it's like 1080. It might be 4K. Sorry, it's not 10. Sorry, it's not 4K. It's 1080p, but it has the benefit of having 90 hertz up to 120 hertz. So you're getting the frame rate, and it feels unreal. So like I was telling you guys last night, I was playing Dead Space this week just because like I'm trying to get the platinum for myself. I put the headphones on. I put the headset on. I grabbed my DualSense, and immediately I was Isaac Clarke. Like, you're in this world. 3D audio's booming around my head, and like the screen is so big, it's right in my face. So like I'm staring down necromorphs as they're coming at me, and like I'm terrified because like
so the idea is that you're playing the game on the headset.
It's like you're playing video games on a 90-inch screen.
Yeah, because it's your entire field of view, right? So that's
exactly.
It's essentially not, or whatever it provides, right? Like your TV screen is essentially on your headset. Is that the idea?
Exactly. So basically, the signal that normally goes to your TV is all getting transmitted to
the headset. Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's
so you're getting getting the direct feed right into your headset.
Yeah,
it is game changing because it feels like a gimmick, but the more I played into it and the more I spent, getting invested, it gave me a new appreciation for like the level of detail these games have, because you're seeing it a lot closer than you are on a TV.
Right.
You're hearing things that you normally wouldn't hear because you're either sitting on your couch or your chair or your bed, and you're not getting the full view. Headset, darkness, like your head's covered, like you can't see anything but the game, and like you're feeling everything, like there's haptics happening. It's just so immersive. And I was like, okay, well, let's see how Returnal plays. Like, and then I went to get to Returnal, and because Returnal's out this week, I had to try it out on PSVR. Oh my god, it plays so great at 120 hertz. Like, I thought 60 frames was great for Returnal until you play 120 hertz in your face. You're not playing Returnal the way I feel like it was meant to, because like I was having the time of my life. Obviously, like it's a third person game, but you're appreciating a lot of things that the developers have done because you're able to see it from like it's in your, like I said, it's in your face.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the only thing I wasn't able to do a lot of testing on, I'm trying to get 3D videos onto my PS5 so I can just see if you can just load up videos and just play with them. But I did a couple of YouTube videos. It was pretty cool. I mean, obviously you're seeing trailers on like a big screen, so it's like you're in a theater, right. But like I haven't been able to get that balance of being able to like load a video. It acknowledges it's a VR headset and it lets you move around in 360. But I see the potential if you're like, the potential to have like Netflix or Disney Plus and you're watching an episode of like, or even HBO and watching The Last of Us. You have the choice to have 100, like let's just say a 90-inch screen in front of your face with surround sound, because that's how good the headphones are. Like, you feel like you're immersed. And I don't know, I know it's a gimmick. I obviously it's not as good as the traditional let's just play on a TV, but like if you have a partner and she wants to watch TV, you can just put the headset on and you're doing your own thing. You can play games to your own comfort. You're getting a really great experience, and like it really elevates.
Just don't swing your arms and the controllers around too much, otherwise knock them out.
Thankfully, you don't have to do that with this. It's just you get to sit there and
it's just the controller.
I had a big grin on my face just because like the things I was able to see. I mean, obviously,
that's cool, man.
It's a gimmick, but for what?
But it's there and it's available and it works, right? So gimmick or not,
it's readily available. That's the first thing I had to try, because like everyone online was. I read a lot of previews and no one really mentioned cinematic mode. I understand. I'm sure, Steve, did you have much time with cinematic mode when you did your preview?
No, not with my preview. No, we didn't.
See, a lot of it looks like it just looks like it was never really talked about or touched upon. No. But like I had to, and I'm glad I did. I'm gonna go back and I did Final Fantasy VII. I'm gonna go back and do a couple more PS. I want to do God of War. I want to go back to Horizon and see if it's any different. But like these games feel.
It's worth a shot. It's worth booting up those games and trying them out. Yeah,
I appreciate them a lot more just because of what it offers me. Like, obviously, I know it's not much, but it's a different perspective on games I've already played.
Right. Literally a different perspective. Yeah.
I highly, if you're listening and you have your PSVR VR2 unit, play one of your favorite games in cinematic mode. It'll make you smile. It's just a great little addition to the unit.
Nice. And then you mentioned that we have a question or two that that you guys want to maybe chip away at.
1, 2. We have 3. I cut down the questions because a lot of them were kind of the same. But the number one is, how is the controller tracking in challenging situations? And so what I assume that is like if you're like in a situation where Steve was saying, like when you're fighting like a monster or like a machine, is it capable of keeping up with your movements, and are you able to keep on track of the action? And I think the first Watcher battle in Horizon is probably a good testament to that, because I actually was so sore after that match, because like you're actively dodging and you're shooting bows and like you're moving around it, and I had no issues with the camera. Like the camera was on top of everything I did, albeit my hands were kind of in the weird position, so like my fingers are always pointing even when I'm doing something on the controller, so that it's not 100%, but like for the pace, yeah, it does a great job. Like the camera,
right. It keeps up. Yeah,
exactly. Like if this was on PSVR, you would have probably thrown the controllers years ago.
Intentionally or not, you would have thrown the
intentionally
controllers.
Or not. But yeah. And then the second question, we have is: are there any tracking issues in a fully dark room? I had issues. So personally, myself, I turned off all the lights. The first time I was able to play, I played Thumper VR, and that was no problem. Like it worked. But then I went to Horizon VR, and it wouldn't even acknowledge I was in the room. It just said turn the lights on, and it refused to boot the game on unless you had proper lighting in the room. So there's that. So you need good lighting to play PSVR, because all the cameras need to understand.
I guess they need something, right? Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Oddly enough, the see-through. So you can actually see through the see-through. You can see sources of light. So like I had a candle on. It was the brightest
moody.
In the room. It was cool. The next evolution
was it vanilla
candles.
Is candles?
It was apple cinnamon from Bed Bath and Beyond.
Dope choice.
Oh, you still got your leftovers from the fall season, I see.
Oh man, these candles
the fall collection.
Like for the fall collection.
Yeah, the fall collection
is a banger.
I want to. Yeah,
it's pretty lit.
It falls.
It's pretty lit. Nice.
It's lit. But So
I ran into the same issue. I tried it once, turning off all the lights, because I was like, oh, my partner, she went to bed. I was like, oh, I'll just play for a little bit. Had all the lights off. It was nighttime. But immediately it's like, no, you don't have enough light. You got to turn something off. I was like, okay, kind of weird, but
I mean,
it's fine, because like once you're on the headphones on, like you don't even know what's happening. Like
exactly.
You have the headphones in, you're in darkness. Like the Sony. So PSVR, like there was always an issue where there's light, like just leaking
in the nose. Yeah.
This is gone. Like it's all total black. So anything you're seeing it's perfect now. Like they fixed that issue. The only issue now is you have to have some light on. So I know people are trying to conserve energy, but you got to have a light on for this one. Sorry. And then the next question. We have one last question. How is the headset game OS for eye tracking calibration after the first setup? I don't think there's anything else inside of the initial setup. I think I just did the first time during the brief introduction setup, and that was it. Like the eye tracking is really good. I mean, I've had no issues with it. Unfortunately, there aren't too many games that I've played so far that have the eye tracking involved in the gameplay. I know Until Dawn has it, where apparently like the marionettes, if you don't look at them, they'll come at you.
Oh, cool.
So I'm terrified of that. I don't want to deal with that. But for the most part, the eye tracking is great. I mean, a lot of games have gaze tracking, so you just look at the menus, and then you can just tap X to
that's
the
cool.
next menu.
Yep.
It's a great addition. But other than that, like everything's great. Like Sony really did a good job calibrating every aspect of this machine.
It sounds like the ease of use. Like you don't have to worry about too much. I mean, you guys have said that a few times, but not like taking those things off your plate and just being able to just put it on and largely just go.
It really is a plug and play thing. Again, it just plugs into the USB-C at the front of the console, and away you go. The only thing that I know that I've had to kind of like finnick around with after the initial calibration is the IPD, which is measures like the distance between your eyes to the lenses. And that's only because if my partner puts it on, she has to like customize that to avoid like it being blurry. That's it. But that's all through the headset itself. The dial is built into it, so it's not like I'm flipping through menus, having to recalibrate the whole thing, do it again for myself, back and forth.
It's not this big 20-minute ordeal every time someone else wants to use it.
The only time I had to deal with any calibration was when I moved rooms. So like I did my room
a
little bit, and then I set up the play area there, and then I decided to move downstairs to where I had more room. And you just basically have to recalibrate again. So it takes like 3 minutes. It literally says, this room is not big enough. Do you want to calibrate the room? So you just do that. You just move around and like this blue hologram scans the room. And then within a minute, you're pretty much...
This room is not big enough. Here's a listing of larger places in your area that you can move to instead.
Go to the library and book a room and just stay there.
Here's the latest listing of an overpriced house or condo in your area that you can move to that has a room big enough.
If Realtor.ca built that into PSVR,
they'd make a killing.
They have a big market. They would make a killing there. Patent pending. We're taking that idea.
Yeah, really, right? All right. So it sounds like largely you guys are giving it a pretty solid grade and really enjoying it. We're going to have more discussion about it as we go along. The full release isn't out yet, so we're going to get lots of feedback of just how the headset is out in the wild, so to speak. But I'm excited to hear more as you guys go through more of these games. Like you said, you have literally over a dozen games that you can try out. And people can come back to us here. They can go to consolecreatures.com to see and hear what you guys have been playing. And until that time, Steve, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me and everything I'm writing and doing across social media at svigvari.
Amazing. Editor extraordinaire, Bobby, where can everyone find yourself? And I guess consolecreatures.com, right? That's the place to go.
Consolecreatures.com, Muckrack, LinkedIn, Twitter, not for much longer, apparently, because now Musk is trying to get us all to look at his stupid tweets. But yeah, that's another podcast. We don't want to get involved with Musk today.
That's it. Yeah.
Be Patch on all channels. You can find me anywhere.
Awesome.
I'm there.
I'm at Dave Petro. You can find my writing at consolecreatures.com as well. I have a couple of reviews lately. Blanc, if anyone's listening to this the week of Valentine's Day or the week after, Blanc is a great game. Great to play with a partner as well. Just wanted to throw it out there. Yeah, it's very, very good. I'll talk about it, and you can find my review on the website as well. Great game on Switch. Great to play with a partner as well. I'll say that. Until next time, though, until next week, everybody, keep your headsets on or off if your eyes are burning at this point. We'll see you next week.